Good evening, everyone, and welcome. Welcome those on Zoom to this special session. This Sunday is Father's Day. So today's session we are dedicating to all the fathers. All the fathers, and the theme, the title chosen for today's sessions is A Father's Heart. What is the role of the father contributing to the individuals? And what is a spiritual perspective on the father role? We will explore that today. But maybe we can start with a minute of silence. Yeah? Jose? Ah. Thank you. For those who are joining us for the first time, my name is Rona Schweitz, and this is the meditation center of the Brahma Kumaris in Manhattan. And we offer different activities, but every Thursday we have these lectures on self-development, different topics, approaching it from a spiritual angle. And once a month we have a Thursday fully dedicated to meditation. But tonight's topic, A Father's Heart, we have with us Michael Burke, one of our very dear students, students, meditators, connected with the Brahma Kumaris for a number of years now. And he is a father. He's also a child, maybe double child even. And he will also share his experiences on and his insights on a father's heart. So I would like him to start.
Om Shanti.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, hi. My name is Michael, and I guess I've been with the Manhattan Center for maybe 7 years-ish now. And thank you, Sister Rona, for um, doing this Father's Day presentation. I don't know what it means as far as last year, Father's Day. I don't know where I was or what I did, Maybe I was still numb. I mean, for those of you who don't know, my son had passed away a few months before the last Father's Day. And I keep a picture of him with me here all the time. Angel eyes, I used to call him. And obviously we were very close, like most fathers and sons are, not all, but most. And before we got started, I had a second to talk to Sister Rona. And over the years, I had so many beautiful nights here. Just so much insight, so much love, so much compassion, so much of you can ask the questions that you're a little bit kind of, I'm not sure if I should ask, and a lot of things were answered. There was a lot of special moments.
You mean the Thursday nights that you used to come
The
here?
Thursday nights,
Yeah.
yeah, and that was
Yeah.
steady for a few years, yeah, because we used to have all kinds of speakers from all over the world and bringing their wisdom, their love, their insight, you know. And my son came to the center one night, and he wasn't necessarily interested in what we study here, but he did it. It was an act of love because he knew that I was kind of. I started, then I was getting a little more, a little more, a little more. So when he came that night, I was just I was in my father's role. You know, I was proud as a peacock. I was running around. This is my son. This is my son. But I couldn't hold myself because I was so genuinely happy, you know. And of course, maybe I wish that he would one day pick up these studies. But like I said, he was a natural. He really was a natural, you know. So, a father, you know, is the protector. He's supposed to be the leader, set the example, um, provide. Um, but all of those things seem like big things, and I guess they are to a certain degree. But when you do it with love, and you do it because you genuinely want to do it, you know, and it's not hard anymore. Whatever the situation calls for, I will, do the best that I can, try to set the best example that I can, you know. There was many times things happened, or things were said, you know. I took my role as a father very seriously, because I wanted him to grow up with a spiritual side. I wanted him to grow up knowing the Father. I wanted him to grow up knowing that the mind can be a very dangerous thing if you don't learn how to control it. Your mind can just take over. And I was guilty of that myself. That's why I had originally come in. For example, later on in life, maybe Conrad was older, maybe 18, 17. He just said to me one day, he said, I've never seen you drink, you know? And I was like, huh. I didn't think too much about it, but I said, and you never will, you know? No, I would like to say that that's kind of some spiritual realization that I had. And no, not to be honest, no. I wanted to lead by example. I could not protect him from that world outside and all the influences, without being true to my own words, you know. I can't lecture the boy on the evils of drinking or drinking and driving and the age of computers. It stays with you forever. And it's not like when I was a kid. And when I was a kid, there was no records. And, I was saying it because I wanted to protect him, but not through words, through actions, And since I've been here in Peace Village and various other centers, of course, I learned everything I did through words. Everything, every single thing was through words, through drishti, eye contact, the vibrations, understanding the knowledge, you know. But the real impact was what kept me here, was knowing that I'm looking around at this family. Is that okay? There we go.
Yeah, but it needs different batteries. Michael will come back in a few minutes. But maybe we need to check the mic and get some batteries in. Maybe I will share in the meantime about my experience with father or fathers. Growing up, I was quite privileged growing up in a little village in South America, but a village that was quite wealthy because there was this bauxite company. And so there was a little bit like Miami was the setting, but in the tropics, in the Amazon. And growing up, I think my father was my first hero. You'd think mother also, of course, mother has the other qualities, but my father, in my mind, he could do anything. He knew everything. He could do anything. And he was so intelligent in my eyes because whatever I learned at school and whatever homework I had, he could do like this. So I used to look up to him and I used to think, wow, and that feeling had always stayed. And because of that feeling that he was the best, I felt secure. I felt safe. And I always felt he will, whatever the family is in, he will always resolve with my mother, siblings. And so growing up with that feeling, I felt is quite fortunate. But because of that, he was also a role model. Because of that, sometimes his standards were a bit too high. He wanted me to be an astronaut. Because he wanted to be an astronaut. So, of course, that vision then goes to the children. I mean, I liked looking at the sky and the stars and the planets, but to be an astronaut, I did not really think that was too. But he set those high standards for us, but in an encouraging way, in a encouraging way, and he lived by his own high standards. And even growing up, becoming older, he was like a friend also. He used to like to play with us, play with our friends. So, at least in this lifetime, in this experience, I felt the role of a father is to provide and protect and to create an environment for the family to grow and to flourish and to bring out the best in each one and to set an example for the children of good character, of high character. But as I grew older, he is also the one who started or inspired my interest in spirituality. He himself, I come from a Catholic background, grew up within that, but he was not really, he knew the Bible back to back. But he always said we have to transcend religion and be spiritual. And so he always encouraged that within us to have certain morals and certain standards and to look for what is beyond. And so when I came into contact with the Brahma Kumaris, when I came into contact with meditation, when I started to study and practice this, when I learned that we are spiritual beings and that there is a father of the body, but that there is a father of the soul also. Of course, that relationship with him changed then. Still, he was father. Still, he was friend. But now there was also a supreme father. And as I began to explore that relationship with the Supreme, those same feelings emerged in me. Someone who provides an environment for me to grow and to learn, but lets you free to explore yourself, and also lets you free in terms of your actions, and the results of those actions are yours also. So you take responsibility for your own life and for your own action, but guidance is there. And just very never fully appreciate the impact of the father role until I started to explore spirituality. Because mother is there, mother gives your food, she clothes, she is there around in the home, or all the things you want to, what is it? Frustrations that you want to express, you run to your mother. But father set a certain standard, even for mother to uphold. And both roles are so necessary in the formation of a personality. And I think as children, but also as parents, whoever is parents, we do underestimate the importance and the impact we have on our children, just by who we are and what we do. And I remember one thing is the things that my father used to say, but the things he used to do, that makes a deeper impact. And I never forget that. And so there's this saying, no? Children never do what their parents tell them, but they never fail to do what their parents do. And so who the parent is, that is what is their impact on their children and their contribution to the children. And I think the father is quite impactful, especially in my case. Not only impactful, but he used to read stories for us at night. Every night. He's so busy, whole day he is at work and so many things to deal with and whatever. He comes home and still at night, he was the one who would take us to bed, tuck us in, and he would read some hero story or some. And he used to be able to tell so, what is it, so in such a entertaining way. Is that the right word? When he would tell the story or he would read the story, but we could see it in our mind. That is the way he would tell. And yeah, it is such a pivotal role to hold the family together. And I think we don't appreciate that role often enough. In the world, in our society. Even Father's Day is coming. What we do, we just go and buy something. That's it, give a gift. But that deeper appreciation, that the example they set, and how that informs your journey. And I feel so fortunate that there is now that Supreme Father too, whom I recognize, who I experience, whom I relate to. And the spiritual father, father means as a child you carry father's DNA. So spiritual father, we carry spiritual DNA, God's DNA also as a spiritual being. So in my relationship with the Supreme and soul to Supreme Soul, I feel the guidance that comes is to manifest that higher nature, to be peaceful, to be loving, to be wise, to be free, to be playful and innocent and just like Father. But the nice thing about this relationship is you always stay child. And he is perfect Father. No, physical father, after some time you get also some disagreements or some things when you grow up. Now father tells you you can't go out. I'm not a child anymore. You can't tell me what to do anymore. You know? But with the Supreme, that child always stays child. Even though you grow and mature and spiritually still. Anyway, these are some of the thoughts and some of the experiences of a father role. And the ideal father. And we can all aspire to be ideal parents again, no? And God is a good example of that.
There's a saying, sister, that while you were talking, it just popped into my mind. Said too much prodding spoils the plant. You know, if you're overbearing and you're all it needs is sunlight,
and water,
and some vibrations, some loving vibrations, and water. You know, and I tried to remember that when I was raising my daughter and my son. Like I need to be involved certain times, but I mean, I don't have to be every second watching every single move they make. They have to find the sun on their own, just like, you know, the sun being the eternal Father. But I can guide them. But, you know, that was my wish for them, that they would take a spiritual attitude towards this very physical, sometimes dirty, sometimes confusing world we live in. I was just hoping, and there was one senior sister that we have, and I had a chance to meet her, and it never ever escaped my memory when she said, "Peace, the one feeling the whole world is looking for." It just hit me, like it really touched a nerve, you know. And especially talking about my son now, the physical Conrad, you know, blonde hair, green eyes, funny, compassionate. Yeah, he was all of those things. And the funny thing about a father, the only people in the world that the father wants to do better than himself, exceed himself, it's his own children. You know? Like I want my friends to do well. I want all my friends and loved ones to do well and live a life of peace, a life of joy, a life of spreading love. But the only person in the world that you want to see do better than you is your daughter or your son.
I thought the astronaut.
Yeah, yeah, right. Yeah, that's right. Exactly. And I know that's what my father wanted for me, you know. But the similarities are there's some differences, but the similarities are much bigger. My father was a Catholic, and he was a hardworking man, great role model, great example, honest, just old school, you know. Work hard, raise your family, be a provider, provide guidance, and he was funny, and he was all of those things. I don't remember getting a bedtime story or getting tucked in, but that's part of the drama too.
Yeah.
But the amazing thing about my particular father, my Lokic father, my physical father, um, and sad in a way. I mean, he didn't have parents.
Mm.
He did not have parents. So how I used to and kind of still do ask myself, how did he transcend that childhood? And this was in the Depression now, where there's no food stamps, there's no social safety net, there's people lined out right up soup kitchens up and down Fifth Avenue. This is the 1930s. And he transcended all of that, you know. So I think there was a book by Bruce Lipton. And sometimes we use this as an excuse. The name of the book was Your DNA is Not Your Destiny, you know.
Mm.
Another, I wouldn't have blamed my father one bit if he was the opposite after his childhood, you know.
Mm.
But that wasn't the case. That wasn't the case.
Mm.
My father was my hero. And
Mm.
he was just, I just loved being around him and we loved to joke and um, just following his example. What do they say? Children, they don't hear 90% of what you say, but they see 90% of what you do.
Mm.
That was my father, you know, always working, always providing, trying to give us a good education. And, you know, things were tight. Things were tight that back then. But Sister Rona, sometimes I wonder, right? I was truly blessed. What a really, really, really great soul, great man as a father, as a teacher. And I remember him so fondly, like as you do yours, you know. But sometimes I just think it's just part of the big picture that I I had him as a
Mm.
father. You know, I don't think it's just a roll of the dice or luck. There's something bigger going on behind these physical eyes. And the more and more and more I study these things, you know, the physical eyes can see beautiful things like these beautiful paintings, this beautiful center, and um, we can exchange drishti with each other and loving vibrations. But for him to transcend and become something else, and I took the benefit, I just think there's something more, much more deep going on, much more deep, you know.
Mm. Mm.
And if I can give you an example of what happened in our life, me and my current wife, or my only wife, um, things happen in this life that can be very shocking and very tragic and very. You have to take a deep breath and inhale, and even if, like in my case at that time, I was student for about 5 years, and I still, you know, you have to grieve. You have to come up for air. Then you go back down, you feel like you're drowning, and then you come up for air, then you feel like you're okay. But you have to go through that process. It's just part of being our human side of our nature that how can I make sense of this? Right. And that was my kind of not when my son passed at the diagnosis. I think when my son got diagnosed, he had a very rare form of spinal cancer. So not only was he up the street in the hospital, he was totally paralyzed. And he was an athlete. He was a lot bigger than me, and it just physical activity and working with children. That was his calling, you know. And I knocked at the door here unannounced, which I never do. And, he just had the operation and he just told me he's paralyzed. And I was just really, really in shock. I didn't know where to turn. And the only thing that makes sense is come to the true Father and talk to the sisters and brothers and instruments and just breathe and try to feel what's going on. And it's making no sense to me at the time. None, zero. But this is how I met my wife. My wife was in Peru, South America, and I was doing my own thing. I was working on ships. So I was just traveling the world. I had no real base. I was just, it's part of my journey looking. I didn't know what I was looking for, but I was sure looking. I was looking in the wrong places, but I figured if I kept traveling, eventually I'd say, oh, here's what I was looking for, but it turned out everything I was looking for was right here because I was born and raised here. And I decided to go all around the world trying to find something that was right here all the time. But my point being that my wife's name is Vivian. Her father died the night before her quinceañera, which is our sweet 16. And he was perfectly healthy man. No, came home from work, went into the bathroom, and that was it. And my daughter being the youngest, and they were especially close, the baby girl of 7. And they were, like you said, they were just had that relationship that transcended the normal. I can't even imagine, even after my own son passed so tragically, how a 16-year-old girl could comprehend that, the pain and the grief and the misunderstanding and the why, and then the physical implications. There's no social services. There's no safety net. It's like if you don't work, you don't eat, basically. Long story short, she ended up coming here as the youngest, and when I met her, she had no intentions of getting married or having a relationship. She was focused on, I got to come to New York City at 19 years old, don't know anybody, find a job, so I can support them, which is an extreme act of courage and love. The baby, the baby of the family. And then we ended up meeting and we were friends and we shared a lot in common and this and that. And sometimes over the years, I thought to myself, as tragic as that was for Vivian, and to uproot yourself from your country and go to another country alone, the intestinal fortitude that must have taken. So I was like, wow, you're really strong. You're really something. And long story short, my daughter first, and then Conrad, my son. And I can't help thinking that through his death, as tragic as it was,
Vivian's father's
right,
death. Yeah. Okay.
through the father's death, which had to be extremely tragic, came new life.
It was the reason for her to move here,
right,
and to start a new life and a new family.
Right. And
so how difficult that was, it was like the way for something new.
For something new to come. So come
and something good.
Right. So, sometimes I had to say to myself, over, a period of time that, death isn't the end, obviously. They'll say all deaths are just new beginnings. But the way that story unfolded, if her father didn't tragically pass away, she would never have come here. They were fine. They were fine. They were middle class, all her friends, So, I start thinking about there is this drama unfolding, and I had trouble with this at the beginning as a new student, that we're taught here that the drama is beneficial. There's always benefit in the drama, even though maybe we can't, not maybe, for sure we can't see it at the time. For sure we can't see it at the time, and it's amazing how if you would just be open enough, open your mind enough, which will only happen in complete silence. And I'm not talking about volume, I'm talking about slowing down the mind and the thoughts. When you can get to that place, that's when you can get some clarity and some answers. And this isn't Michael talking. I mean, Einstein said it in the 30s, right? Like, think of a problem for a week straight, nothing comes. I sit in silence and I find the answers. And this is, 100 years ago, basically, So the idea that sitting in silence and learning to silence the mind, that the gifts, the connection, the clarity
comes
that you get from that, and sometimes it might take a long time. But the thing I think sometimes is the worst thing we can do, absolutely. And, I've seen it happen, is start the journey and then give up. That's a real tragedy, because sometimes I think, Sister Rona, I might not become the best version of myself in this lifetime. Maybe that's the aim, but I will be better than I was yesterday or the day before or the week before. Just even when my son passed and the sorrow and the shock, I never gave up the belief, that same as my wife, maybe I don't understand it, the whole thing, but that's okay. I'm just going to keep coming, because my relationship with the eternal Father is, he wants the best for me, and I have to put in the effort, I have to put in the time, and I've had some jobs that were enjoyable for some reasons, but this is a journey of learning, a journey of compassion, a journey of enjoying each other's company. And so many sisters and brothers come from all over the world, and all of the basics are the same, but you do get a little bit of different perspectives. And, and if you just can break out of those, I call them conditioned thinking. When we're young, we're just very conditioned, probably by our parents, talking about fathers, right? A parent can have the opposite effect too. A parent could really, it's a big responsibility that he could kind of like fill your mind with things that are maybe not so good. Like money is the bottom line. You got to do anything, for example, But a father whose heart is filled with love just wants, like one senior sister said, just wants her child to be at peace. That's the everlasting wish.
So, how to characterize the feelings in the heart when playing the father's role? The spiritual perspective is that we are all spiritual beings, souls, and we take a body And through that body, we act out different roles. One is a father role. Another one can be career related, doctor or whatever. But how to play that father's role in a hero way. What motivates? What are the feelings behind? What are what is the wisdom behind to play that part in a way that is uplifting and encouraging? And in that sense, I think the root of for anyone to go through their lives and play the role that they have to play, it would be your self-awareness and the emerging of your own higher potential. And then you can infuse that in whatever part you play as a father. But one thing that can happen with parents is that we project on our children our own beliefs, our own needs, maybe even, or desires or expectations. And that is where the father role can become a bit suffocating, maybe for children.
With good intentions, but
intentions can be very good, but there also has to be a certain wisdom and power. So a father's heart also needs to be nurtured. And so if a father takes care of his own spiritual needs, he will play the father part.
Yes.
Much better.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
In other words, like I received an introduction to the Father, and that was for me. However, through that, I was able to pass on the knowledge, through my both children. Both children,
Yeah.
But it had to come from me, otherwise I had to feel it and live it. I couldn't just read the words, because there's a lot of nice words, mantras, whatever.
Yeah.
But they're short term, they don't really work, I don't think. A deep understanding of what this whole play is about, and what's the end game.
Yeah.
And I do like here at the Brahma Kumaris, we have a saying, world transformation through self-transformation.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So if you really do want to help and transform the people around you, it really starts with you.
Yeah.
You have to understand the basics and the knowledge and continue every day. This isn't in the Catholic Church, it was once a week for an hour and you're good.
Yeah.
But it's funny that you said about your father, because my father actually got very spiritual towards the end of his life, not when he got diagnosed. Towards the end of his life, he got very spiritual. And I know that for a fact because the day before he passed, he was sitting up. They stopped all treatment. He knew he had like less than 48 hours. I'd never seen anybody so happy and peaceful. You know, I asked him, "Can I get you anything?" And he said, "Get me a soda and a slice of pizza." You know,
Soda and a slice of
I
pizza.
mean, that man was not worried about death.
Yeah.
That man was not worried about death. And probably a little bit more, maybe a lot more going on than I think, but I think that without able to express it in the language that we use, he spread so much love and so much karma in the world. He wasn't worried. He basically had the idea, I did the best I could. You know, a lot of people say that, but he knew that he did the best he could with where he started. And that was where the spirituality kind of transcended to religion. He started thinking about on those terms, you know?
Yeah.
It was a beautiful thing to watch, actually. It was a beautiful thing to watch, you know?
Yeah. Time flies. Maybe some in the public want to ask or say anything about a father's heart. Anyone want to say anything or ask anything? Or on Zoom?
I had a question I wanted to ask Michael. You mentioned that everything is beneficial. You've come to understand that. And I was wondering if you have given any thought to what for you was beneficial in the loss of your son. And how understanding that is informing, since he's passed, how you're living your life now.
Well, very, very good question, Brother Ananta. And takes a lot of insight to ask that question. And there is an answer. It's an answer I don't even have to think about. What I was saying, Sister Rona, about before, you know, things aren't always as they appear to these eyes. Trust me, you know, you could be seeing something or somebody, I should say, and you could have a totally different opinion of them based on really nothing. So things aren't always, don't always trust your physical eyes, you know. But I spent, and I'm happy to admit it, that when my son was born, I took it very, 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 very seriously. And I would change my work schedules and do this and do that just to spend time. And we had our own thing. We'd go camping, just me and him in the woods every September, from the time he was 7 to the time he was 19, you know? Then he got a girlfriend and Poppy was. Thanks, but no thanks. But from 7 to 19, 18, it was the two of us up in Rhode Island in the middle of the woods. And we would just spend 3 days together, you know. And I told him the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I don't know why. I do know why I did that, you know, because I didn't want him to make the mistakes I made. And I think a hero part, and we learn this here, is set. Truth. Truth. So I wasn't sure how he was going to receive it. I mean, I didn't lay out a whole bunch of stuff when he was 8 years old. You know, as he progressed, the stories got a little, little more intense. But that's the relationship. That's the relationship that we had. That we would, I would tell him the truth as I saw it and the experiences I had, good and bad. But to answer your question, Brother Ananta, when Conrad crossed over, when Conrad went home, it wasn't long, I realized. I was showing him for 25 years what it likes to be a man, what it takes to be a man in this city, in this world, and do it with a certain amount of dignity and a certain amount of values. And at the end of the day, he's the one who taught me dignity and honesty and acceptance and just pure love. You know, being up the street for 9 months, you know.
In the hospital where he was.
Yeah, he was paralyzed, and then he taught himself to walk in a rehab center. then it all came back. And then when they did the second operation, that was it. But the answer to your question is, I spent a good part of my life trying to show him what it means to be a pure soul. It's better to give than to receive. Turns out at the end of the day, he's the one who showed me all of this. And Brother Ananta, that was mind-blowing for me the day that I realized that it was the student giving the teacher a big lesson. Because I would drive an hour and a half every day to see him. I never really missed a day. First thing he asked me when I got there, how was the traffic on the way down? You know? I mean, he's laying there, he's paralyzed. The prognosis isn't good, and he's worried about how was the traffic on the way down, you know? So putting his life in that perspective, could you say he came here to teach? Not just me, but since we were close, obviously, you know? And that was like a little like, wait a minute now, you know?
Who was teaching who?
Yeah. Who's the father here, you know? But to have so much dignity in the face of so much thrown at the poor kid, you know? Besides having a fiance and all of that. But
he was 20?
24.
24.
Yeah. And it was a very comforting thing, because then I go back to, there's something much deeper going on here, you know?
Yeah.
The love I had for him and the love I gave to him from my heart, I got back tenfold. And maybe that's a lesson for us all. It is in giving that we receive. It is in loving that we are loved. It is understanding that we are understood. You know, when I see people, or you see people at work, and this happens, that happens, people, they're seeing life through their eyes, their sense cars, their history, which we know nothing about. We might just label that person, just throw a label on them, you know? I don't really care for that person. There again, you're seeing with the physical eyes, you have no idea of the, you know, the perspective they had came from somewhere. So just send them a good vibration, send them a blessing. And so many things start to happen. Your mind starts to slow down. You're not filled with anything but love. You want the best for that soul. You don't need to know all the details. You just want the best, you know, and that brings its own sense of peace, because you really feel like you're connecting. You really feel connected.
That is actually a characteristic of a mother's and a father's heart, no?
Yes.
That their life becomes in service of their children, at least for a time. And interest.
Is it right? I'm pretty sure, but you have to maybe correct me if I'm a little bit off, but Supreme Soul, Eternal Father, who was with us and guiding us 24/7, always wants the best, is also mother also, right?
Yeah.
It's the mother and father.
Yeah.
And I really, really love that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's just such a beautiful thing to have, you know, things that a mother would give.
Yeah.
Comfort. And, you know, sometimes you go to your mother because you're afraid to go to your father.
Yeah.
But when I was learning that the eternal Father is both mother and
Mother
father,
and father,
you know, and
but also friend.
and friend, and eternal parent.
Yeah.
You know, you're not labeling father, mother, you're saying eternal parent
Yeah.
who does, and you can correct me if I'm off, he does want better for us.
Yeah. The
than for,
highest and the best.
yeah,
Yeah.
and only a father
Yeah.
wishes that. I mean, that's just the way it is.
Yeah. But what is nice also in this understanding is that, of course, there is the father's heart, and the father, the parents, they give everything, but ultimately also the child has to do their own. What they use, what they get from the parent, from the father, and of course also the eternal Father, what we receive from the eternal Father, what do I do with that? And do I use what I have received or am receiving to truly bring benefit to myself and to others?
Yeah.
And the true Father's heart is able to also accept that and give the blessing and accepts and encourages, but also steps back and let you learn for yourself. I remember my physical father. He used to, many things he used to teach us, but one of the things he taught me was swimming. As a very young child, I was almost still a baby. I couldn't even walk, but they used to film. And so he would teach to swim, but then he will let you swim by yourself. You know, he's around.
Right.
Nothing really bad can happen, but you also have to kind of find your own way. And mother's heart is a little different in that way. No, mother's heart, she wants to just do everything for the child. But father is that one who teaches, shows, and protects and guides, but let you find your
Absolutely.
way also.
Absolutely.
And beautiful aspect, no, of a father's heart and the father role.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Anyway, the time flies. I don't know if Ananta's question is answered.
It certainly was, and what I would say, Michael, is that your son didn't leave without giving you his inheritance, and that's really great. That's really great. So thank
I
you.
like that, brother. Very, very well said. Very well said. Yeah.
Okay, anyone else? Time is up.
Hello, brother.
Time went so fast.
So here he did a lot of parenting.
Yeah.
And remind me what words
Can you bring the mic for?
You said that your son did to some degree some parenting of you. and, and I'm reminded of what this poem by William Wordsworth. The child is the father of the man. Yes.
Yeah, there was many times I'd come home from work and it was a particularly bad day or a long shift, and I'd be like, you know that guy Billy? Yeah, blah blah blah. He'd be like, oh, come on, you know how he is. Like, let it go. You know, and he was like 14, 15 years old. And he's telling me I gotta let it go. You know what I mean? He wanted to kill, you know. But if we have time, sister, I wrote a little thing because I was trying to say, when anybody experiences a loss, it doesn't matter. A loss is a loss of a loved one. And I hate to even use that word loss because it's absolutely the wrong word to lose, you know. When they, cross over and their journey here, their soul transcends to continue the journey, you know. So I was I had a little time this morning, so I tried to write something down. Maybe if we can,
We can close with that.
yeah, well,
Yeah.
we'll call it. It'll
Yeah.
just take a minute. Yeah, as I kind of mentioned before, I was born in the city, and had a lot of friends, and I had a lot of good times. But I knew that this wasn't it, and I was searching. So I joined the Merchant Marine. I was sailing all around the world for years. Never found out there what I was looking for. But I tried to put it in that context. So if maybe you could bear with me for 1 second. I guess a little note.
You have to use the mic, otherwise.
A little note I wrote for myself was here, for who's listening, is open yourself up to changing your perspective. Don't be so locked into the perspective that we've held on to for so long. And if you're in the shipping industry, ships are always referred to as a her, Yeah.
Really?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah, like they would say, yeah, she's
Ship
good.
is a her.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she's a good one, and she can take a beating. Or I worked on her for 10 years. Always ships are fun.
Oh, I didn't know
Yeah, yeah,
that.
yeah. I always thought that was interesting. You know what I thought was interesting too? When you're on a plane and they say, how many souls on board? That's the only place I ever hear.
That word.
How many souls on board? But
Okay.
the same situation here. So I was on a ship for a long time. And I just want you to imagine in your mind's eye, imagine one of those full-masted sailing ships from the 1800s. Okay. What is dying? I am standing on the seashore as a ship sails into the morning breeze and starts for the ocean. A new journey begins. Until at last she faded into the horizon, and someone at my side said, she's gone. And I say, gone where? Gone from my sight is all. Just gone from my physical eyes. The diminished size and the total loss of sight in me is not in her. Her size didn't diminish because I can't see. She's the same soul,
Size, yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That did not diminish because of the sight in me. And just that moment, someone said next to me, she's gone. But there are others who are watching her on the other side of the ocean. And their voices take up a new song. Here she comes. That is dying. You're just transitioning from a place of love to a place of even greater love and peace. So just because someone is gone with the physical eyes, the essence, and we talk a lot about essence here, Sister Rona, the essence never changes. His essence will never change. Your father's essence will never change. My father's essence will never change. And, as growing up and you're a boy, you don't understand, death is final, death is final, death is awful. No, actually, death is just a continuation of the soul's journey. Being human beings, we're just so constantly inundated with the human part of our body. We just need to spend a little more time being gentle and caring with the being. And if we can do that, we're going to be okay.
Thank you. Thank you all. And I hope you got a little bit of an insight in a father's heart. And maybe it will help to celebrate Father's Day with a bit more depth, and a bit more appreciation also for the role of a father, but also the being who plays that role. No matter what situations we go through. Any final comment or thought? Then thank you. And next week, the Thursday night will be a night of meditation. The whole hour we will have different meditation exercises and practices. You are most welcome to join us in person also, and those who are living a bit further away, most welcome to join on Zoom. So what empowers the being so that we can play whatever part we have to play, be it father, mother, or friend, or colleague, or boss, or child, whatever the part is that you play, that you can play it with peace, with wisdom, with harmony. But let's celebrate this weekend the part of a father and the feelings in the heart of a father. Thank you. Let's close with a minute of silence.